Near-death experiences have become well documented and almost common. People die, move into what they believe is the afterlife, and for some reason are compelled to come back. Dannion Brinkley also had a near-death experience, but he claims that he can now see into the future and communicate with the other side. His strange journey began during the Vietnam War.
Recruited into various intelligence organizations, hired to do jobs much like we would do now in what we call clandestine or covert activities in the Middle East, in the Far East, in Central and South America, where the everyday life was built with dealing with war and being shot at or destroying something or something destroying you. And so my entire mentality was to hit it hard, to move fast as lightning, to cover ground, to protect my people, to get the job done, and then to get the hell out.
Brinkley called himself the ultimate angel of death. But while at home on leave, he came face to face with the real thing.
I was talking on the telephone. I was struck by lightning. It moved down the phone line, it went into my neck, it went down my spine. The impact welded the nails of the heels of my shoes to the nails in the floor. Throws me in the air, suspends me in the air, and slams me back down, burning, on fire, not knowing where I am, not knowing what had happened, not knowing which way to go. Then all of a sudden, I'm in a blue-gray place floating, peaceful, wondrous. I was safe, and I knew something horrible had happened. A tunnel forms, and I move down this tunnel. This tunnel is moving whether I'm moving or not. It radiates, it shimmers, it has tones, sounds, and frequencies to it. I come into this place of the most bright, brilliant, beautiful light.
And the light, according to Brinkley, revealed beings and events unlike anything he had ever experienced in his earthly life.
They're both ethereal and radiant, magnificent beings, but they're also as though they're friends. They're also as if they know you and you know them, and that you have met before, and that you've been close to each other before. And then I literally had a 360-degree panoramic life review. I saw everything I'd ever done. I literally became every event.
Brinkley wasn't simply a passive viewer. Not only did he see every detail of his own life, but felt every emotion of every person he had ever met.
I had to feel all the pain, all the anguish, the humiliation, and the suffering that I'd placed on so many people.
Then the images running through Brinkley's mind went beyond his own life. He began to have visions of the future and warnings about things.
I saw events. It was as though I was there. I was in the Middle East, I was in Russia, I was around nuclear explosions, and after I'd gone through the vision, then the beings told me that I had to return. I did not want to. The saddest moment I've ever had in my life was when they told me I would have to return.
Brinkley's body was under a sheet in a hospital holding area. He had been legally dead for 28 minutes. Hospital attendants were on their way to take him to the morgue.
I see the elevator doors open and I see two guys step out of the elevators. As they move close to me, all of a sudden I'm in my body. Air rushed in my lungs. And I started blowing on the sheet as fast as I could.
Doctors quickly stabilized Brinkley, and his body began a slow, agonizing march to recovery. He was completely paralyzed for 6 days. It took him 2 years to walk again. And when he finally recovered, he found himself spiritually changed.
When I died, what it felt like was from a place of total pain and a total horror to a place of bliss. You know, there is like a border that you cross from this world into the next world to regain and recapture your true spiritual self. Once you've experienced that, you change.
Brinkley believes his spiritual recovery was a sign for him to help others face death. He wrote about his experiences and became a best-selling author and lecturer. Now he spends most of his time as a volunteer hospice counselor, comforting dying patients and their families. His brush with death not only caused a psychological change, but it also triggered unexpected paranormal manifestations. Dr. Martin Braven is a clinical psychologist who has studied near-death experiences for over 40 years. He believes that the massive electrical shock, as well as the near-death experience itself, could have transformed Brinkley into a psychic lightning rod.
There appears to be a connection between the near-death experience and enhanced or increased what we call psychic abilities. It's as though you'd opened a door.
Incredibly, many of the visions Brinkley saw came true. He saw and was able to predict increased tension in the Middle East, including the rise of the Ayatollah Khomeini, an increase in worldwide terrorism, and the fall of the Soviet Union. He says he also gained the ability to communicate with the dead and connect them with the living.
He asked me to write down my grandmother's name, and possibly some connection may be made as a result of doing that. That night, I had a dream that Dannion handed me a telephone and said, "There's somebody that would like to speak to you." And I put the phone to my ear, and it was my grandmother's voice telling me how much she loved me, and there was nothing to worry about. That next morning, I went to attend Dannion's lecture. He looked up at me, and the first thing he said to me is, "Tom, didn't we have a great time last night?" I was shocked.
Brinkley also claims awesome psychic abilities.
Don't get caught up in this family events. There's a lot of family stuff going on, and I know it. I can pick it up. Don't you get caught up in it.
The early days had so much information being poured at me from I couldn't sit in a restaurant, I couldn't be around people because I could perceive what people were thinking.
Brinkley continues to work non-stop because according to his own visions, his time is short.
I don't plan to be here after about 2004. So I know my time here is pretty well managed and pretty well measured because I didn't see anything in the future that had me in it after that.
But he does have a very specific vision for our future after he's gone.
In the last 4 or 5 years, I have seen the most wondrous spiritual movements among people, events, and nations. I think the future is bright.